Yeah, let's do that.
Get an update on the draft, which is can't get here soon enough, right? By the way, on the chat, we had this from Amadrock. I was listening in the garage, heard Soulshine Band. Good call, my dude.
I like it when the YouTubers call in. People that's on YouTube every day with us, Sactown Sports 1140. You can subscribe and like right now. Every day we're on there.
Nice enough to join us right now. He's a senior NBA writer and draft analyst for USA Today's For the Win. Bryan Kalbrosky with us. Bryan, thank you so much for your time and your insight. If there are tiers to this draft, where would you draw the lines? In other words, top three or separating from the rest, or where do we draw the lines as far as the tiers in terms of the quality of this draft, Bryan?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that has been said about the quality of this draft for the past couple of years, right? Like, people have said that this has been a poor class. I think it's been a little bit overstated how poor the class is. But I do think that, frankly, like, the difference between players legitimately 1 through about where the Kings are picking is relatively similar. I think that the best player in this class could legitimately be picked at 12 or in that range. Does that mean the Kings will pick them? That much I cannot say. Does that mean the Kings will even use this pick? That much I cannot say. But I think that at the end of the day, when we look back at this class, it could be the number 1 pick that's the best player, but it could also be someone picked anywhere in that range as well. Just as easily.
Yeah. Interesting. Hey, Bryan, who do you have in that range for the Sacramento Kings? Who do you think will still be on the board around that 13 range?
Yeah, I think if I were the Kings, the player that I would target the most would probably be like a Jared McCain, if he's still on the board, the point guard out of Duke. He played a little bit more off-ball guard, but I think that he could translate as a point guard in the NBA. But due to his size, he is undersized, which I think is the only reason why he'd be falling that far. But as a potential replacement for Malik Monk, if Monk leaves in free agency, that's somebody that I would definitely have pretty highly targeted for them in that range. But either way, I mean, scoring off the bench is always something that any team in the NBA could use. And I think that his 3-point shooting is definitely going to translate to the next level. So he's somebody that I would definitely like and definitely target, if I'm the Kings. I think that their draft office has definitely been evaluating prospects well recently. Obviously, they were able to identify, someone like Tyrese Halliburton recently, and that was, able to pay dividends by getting them Sabonis. And, whether or not they use the pick or trade it or whatever it might be, I think that, I definitely trust that there's a ton of players in that range that could potentially fit the mold of Sacramento's looking for. But I do also think that Sacramento's been relatively quiet this year in terms of what they seem to be looking for. I'm not hearing a lot of leaks, not hearing a lot of draft workouts reported. I'm not hearing a lot of their name and rumors. So, I think that might just kind of be, what their MO is. But, their MO tends to be more analytically friendly, right? Like, they tend to like players who, have a good track record of success and models that, predict the NBA projections.
Catching up with Bryan Kalbrosky, senior NBA writer, draft analyst for USA Today's For the Win. And Bryan, we found out yesterday, it was reported that the Kings, among the players they've worked out, are a couple of guys that we were assuming would be right near the top of the draft, Klingon and Sarr. So that could suggest maybe the Kings are looking to trade up, but perhaps it also suggests, to the first point you made, maybe they realize this draft is so even that some people that we assume will be gone at the top may drift down to 12 or 13.
I think that's legitimately a fair projection. And I think that, we've already seen after an initial wave of mocks originally projected, Sarr as kind of a consensus number 1. I don't think Sarr is the consensus number 1 that people, originally had him as after the lottery. That doesn't mean that he's going to fall all the way to where the Kings are picking. Perhaps he falls a little bit more towards, where the Kings could have the assets to trade up for. But I do think that he still could go number 1 fairly easily as well. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think that, there are definitely players who could fall. Klingon's a great example. I think I've seen him as high as number 2. I think that, number 9 or so could be also a reasonable range for him as well, because, there might not just be teams in that range looking for a big who doesn't have a track record of shooting at this point in his career. Obviously, at the combine and during these pro days, everyone's going to say that they're a stretch 4, stretch 5 now. And Clayton's, definitely got the size to translate to the NBA. Rim protection is absolutely elite. But at the same time, like if someone like that fell towards like 8, 9, 10, like that wouldn't surprise me by any stretch. And the same goes for someone like Rizashea, who is now being called the projected number 1 pick by a couple outlets, right? He's really streaky, and he's had a lot of good games, but a lot of not so good games as well. And maybe there are teams that don't trust someone like that. So I think that a lot of guys could potentially be told by their camps that their range is 2 to 5 and find themselves in that 8 to 12 range.
Hey, Bryan, who's some sleepers that you're keeping an eye on? Guys that maybe, late first round that you think can make a big difference? Is Zach Edey in that category? Like, who are some sleepers out there?
Yeah, I definitely think that Zach Edey is somebody who is probably actually being a little bit undervalued, considering the success that he's had in college. I think that he's somebody who, definitely in analytic models is going to pop. And obviously his size is really unique. And at the combine, he tested better than Donovan Clingan at essentially every single test. Mobility, agility, verticality. That doesn't necessarily mean he's able to apply all of that during the games, because I think a huge part of athleticism in basketball is actually functional athleticism. But I do think that Edey is being a little bit undervalued right now. I think in a draft, 20 years ago, he would have been the consensus number 1 pick based off the stats that he had and the way the NBA has played. Now I think he's being kind of criticized for things that he can't really control as much, like being such a big guy, right? But I still think in shorter spurts, which is what he's going to have to do in college, rather in the NBA compared to what he did in college. In shorter spurts, I think that he actually should be a pretty functional big man who could have a bigger impact than guys like Boban have had in the NBA, and kind of guys similarly built. And there's not too many of those kind of guys. I think another sleeper to kind of keep an eye on, who's definitely been rising a bit, is Kaishan George out of Miami. He was a one and done freshman. I think originally from either Sweden or Switzerland. So forgive me for not having that in front of me right now. I think he's actually from Switzerland. But he played 1 year at Miami, and he kind of was late to the game of basketball, but showed a ton of development in his first year of college basketball. And he's 6'8" with point guard skills and can shoot and defend at a pretty high level. So that's somebody who I think will probably go a little bit higher than he's currently projected in some mocks. Another sleeper that the Kings specifically should keep an eye on, and I heard that they may have had a workout with him today, is Coleman Hawkins, who's from Sacramento originally. So Coleman Hawkins is from he went to Illinois. He's currently in the transfer portal. Don't think he's decided if he's going to go back to school or stay in the NBA draft, but he was one of the big standouts during the NBA draft combine scrimmages. He played in the 5-on-5s and got player of the game in one of those games that he did play. And I think that he's somebody who I would definitely highlight as well as somebody to keep an eye on, especially if you're a Kings fan, because I think they had a workout with him and he's a hometown pick.
Oh, who else have the Kings been working out, as far as you know, Bryan? Anybody else today?
Yeah, not that I have in front of me. Not that I have in front of me. I should have reached out to a few more sources on that one.
No, that's all good.
One more player that I think is not getting talked about enough is Trenton Flowers. He originally was committed to Louisville. Louisville was a bit of a mess this year and didn't end up going over there. Went to Australia's NBL from America instead. And he didn't get a ton of minutes, but I think was one of the biggest winners from the combine too. Tested super, super well. Somebody who had great vertical, great athleticism. In his combine scrimmage first game, he was 5 for 5 with 12 points. Played within his role, good speed, good agility, all the things we're looking for a potential second-round pick. And I think that from what I've heard, he's been interviewing well too.
Bryan, we appreciate your time very much. Thanks for your insight. Now we got to find out everything we can about the player that the Kings worked out today. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Sounds good. Appreciate you guys.
All right, Brian. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having
Bryan,
me.
yeah, Bryan Kalbrosky from For the Win. Coleman Hawkins, huh?
That's the guy.
Yeah.
We
Let's find out what we can about Coleman Hawkins, and we'll have that for you when we come right back. Drive Guys on Sactown Sports.